You're listening to the Veterans Heritage Hour on the Vets on Media Network.
Good morning, Arizona, and welcome to our listeners from around the globe. My name is Joe Brett.
And I am David Lucier.
And you're listening to the Veterans Heritage Hour. Before we introduce our guest today, and this is kind of a Marine show, we're in temporary quarters. The Birdman, our producer and radio show owner, is switching bunkers on us as we move our show from station to station looking for a permanent dwelling. But we're honored today to be with Nexus Steel. They're offering their building to us today. And we're particularly remembering Navy Corpsman Nathaniel Martins, who was killed in Iraq at the age of 20 on September 6th in 2005. So this show's for you, Nathaniel, and for your dad, who has allowed us to use this space. And I want to introduce our first guest, and is Joanna Sweat. And she's a veterans advocate at the Pat Tillman Center at Arizona State University. Good morning, Joanna.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Well, great. And Peter, you want to introduce your nephew?
Well, I'll introduce Peter Lucier, who is a Marine Corps vet, combat vet, infantryman. Spent a tour in Afghanistan. Peter, are you online?
I am. Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Peter. Thank you. Welcome. You're with another Marine veteran here, Joanna, also in the Marine Corps, served in Iraq. From what years were you there, Joanna?
I was there in 2003.
And when were you there, Peter?
I was in Afghanistan in late 2011 and early 2012.
Wow.
So recently.
And we've been fighting. You know, someone mentioned the other day that Daniel Rothenberg, the co-director of this Center on the Study of War, said that he's teaching students now who were, I don't know, 10 maybe, 8 or 10, and this war's been going on for 13 years, and some of those kids are now as students, and they've not known a country that has not been at war.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. And so we're at perpetual war, and you guys are here. You are in 2003 in Iraq, and Peter's 2011, and it's still going on. So, Joanna, let's start with you. Why did you go in the military? What prompted that choice? And you were pretty close to 9/11, so that must have had something to do with it. But tell us why the military, and Peter, this question's coming to you next, but why the military and why the Marine Corps?
I actually joined the Marine Corps in 1998. So I graduated high school in 1996. I gave birth to my daughter late 1996 after graduation. And I was just working. I had a girlfriend who was a great friend of mine who was—
Was this in Sacramento or was this—
No, this was in Glendale, Arizona.
Okay.
And she was a year behind me in school. So she was graduating in 97 and had made the decision to join the Marine Corps. And me being an Air Force brat, I really had no idea what a Marine was or what that entailed. But I went down with her because she had talked to me about the buddy program.
To the Marine recruiter.
To the Marine recruiter. And then you go and you meet a Marine and you're like, damn, he looks good. You know, that uniform just does it for you. You can't look at another uniform after that. You really can't. And he really sold the Marine Corps to me, the values, what I could be doing and how I could be contributing. And so I didn't hesitate. Needless to say.
And how old were you at this time?
I was barely 19.
Okay.
And she didn't go. I left. So my buddy didn't come with me, and I departed to boot camp all on my own.
So you were a star athlete in high school?
I was. I played high school basketball. I played in Sacramento, and then when I moved to Arizona, I just picked up and played on the team for a year.
So you were pretty fit?
I was.
And you weren't intimidated by the prospect of going in and being a Marine?
Not at all. And we were at peace. I mean, there had been really no conflict since the Middle East, and that was, very quick. And
sure.
And so that just wasn't even on my radar. I just went in for the opportunity of education, doing something better for myself and contributing to the country.
Fantastic. And Peter, let's go to you. Tell us a little bit about how you made your decision, what you did, what motivated you, and then tell us a little bit about your journey through the Marine Corps.
Sure. So I've been kind of thinking about this question since you guys sent it to me, and you get asked it a lot while you're in and while you're out, and it's kind of funny depending on who I'm talking to. I kind of have different kind of go-to stories about why I joined. If I'm talking to another vet, or if I'm talking to a college student, I might tell two very different things, and I'm not really sure how it all kind of happened. But I ended up in a recruiter's office one day. Like to a vet, I might say, so I was 11 years old when 9/11 happened. You guys were kind of talking about that earlier. I mean, I was young, and so we kind of grew up. I spent my formative years, watching these wars unfolded, and then on the 10th anniversary, we were actually doing our workup to go to Afghanistan, and it was kind of this surreal thought that this war had started when I was 11, and I'd kind of grown up watching it, and now I was going to go be a part of it. And so, that might be something I kind of say to a veteran. Being part of that and seeing it growing up, it kind of got in the mindset. To a college student, I might say something about, I was kind of this idealistic 18-year-old kid, and I had big ideas about the world, and I wanted to see how they would hold up against, kind of harsh realities around the world. I kind of wanted to see some things and have some experiences.
Now, you had an older brother who was a Marine, yes?
What's that? I'm sorry.
You have an older brother who was a Marine, yes?
Yeah, and then so my older brother is a Marine as well, so that was a part of it, and there is some family tradition of military service. So,
and you have a crazy uncle who was a special forces guy. I mean, that has to weigh in there somewhere.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. So all those kind of things, and then I was 18, and I went into a recruiter's office, and they kind of take it from there, and that's a good thing, and I was really glad that I did, and happy, and it was a good experience for me.
What were you promised? What was your vision? What did the recruiter paint a picture? What was the picture he painted or she painted for you to get you to sign up?
That's
not a rose
that's
garden.
a funny story.
Is that what they say? I didn't promise you a rose garden.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard. It's going to be lean, mean, a fighting machine. Did they give you all of that?
Ask Peter what were his benefit tags that he picked.
Benefit tags. Well, I haven't heard that one before. Peter, what were your benefit tags?
I don't know about I know my enlistment code. My contract was it was a UZ. Yeah, I think it was a UZ or UV, one of those two. Uniform Victor uniform. So that was a security forces contract. And my recruiter didn't really know what security forces was, and so I actually, and it's not his fault at all, but I thought I was going to be guarding the president, doing Camp David stuff. We thought that's all that there was to security forces. And then I ended up in a different security force regiment, a big regiment. I ended up with a unit called FAST. It's a security team, mostly kind of a mobile security team. And that's what I ended up doing. But yeah, I thought I was going to be doing this stuff and then go to the infantry for a couple of years. And it ended up being a little bit different path. But yeah, they put the plaques in front of you and tell you about, brotherhood and fraternity and physical fitness and all that stuff. And it's certainly all true.
So Joanna, you were a recruiter.
I was.
So what did you, before that though, you went to, you joined up, you became a Marine and you went to Iraq, and what was your specialty? What was your MOS?
My MOS was communications. I was a radio operator.
So was that crypto clearance or anything like that?
I had a secret clearance.
Okay.
You get a higher clearance if you stay in at the staff level and continue on. But because I went to recruiting duty after I returned from Iraq, I just kind of changed career pathways.
So you went to Iraq prior to the big buildup. You were there in what, 2003?
Yes, I crossed over into Iraq.
Into the dark side.
Yeah.
From Kuwait?
From Kuwait.
And you were staged there in a big Marine base or a big base gathering area, collection area.
Where were you based?
So when we first went over to Kuwait, we built the big air facility there, Al Jaber. And so 400,000 different troops from all over the world were there. So we set up that facility. At the time when I was there, we called it Camp Sled because it was named after a Marine who had been killed previously, I believe. And then from there, we moved a little bit closer. We were about on a camp about 39 miles outside of Iraq. And then in March.
So a woman in the
crossed
Marine
over.
Corps doesn't sound too appealing to many women, I would think.
Probably not, yeah.
So what was your, were you treated well? Was it a hardship tour, or was it, were the men kind of not treating you with proper respect, et cetera? Or did it all work out all right?
No, I never had any trouble with my peers. The only headaches from male Marines that I ever had were kind of the old heads that were still around, like your gunnies, your mass sergeants that were the old Corps, as they would, complain about. And I didn't ask for vaginas to be in my unit. And, you deal with that kind of stuff, or they just assume, you're going to be a certain type of girl.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to do a lot of extra stuff to prove that you're willing to do what everyone else is doing.
Sure. Now the Marines, I think, are training, are looking into training women to be in active combat roles.
Yeah, they've done actually a lot of progression in that.
Interestingly enough, too, we, throughout our country's history, women have served in some capacity, and a lot of them in very dangerous, if not direct combat.
Including your mom, who was a WASP.
A women's air service pilot in World War II.
And Peter's aunt. Peter, what did you do? And you became a grunt, an infantryman in the Marine Corps. And what did your unit do in Afghanistan?
We conducted counterinsurgency operations. We were in the Kaneshan district of Helmand province. We started off very far south and near the Pakistani border, doing big mounted sort of interdiction operations. And we actually demilitarized that base. We were kind of preparing for the drawdown that was going to start happening in 2012. So we demilitarized that, worked back in closer to what we call kind of the key district areas in Helmand province.
So when you say demilitarized, does that mean you were shooting it up? Were you close encountering with the bad guys and, search and destroy and getting the body count? Or how would you describe that, other than saying we, in civilian terms, I hear you, but what did you do militarily?
Oh, I mean, we were kind of doing the hard work of counterinsurgency. It's just, daily patrolling, interacting with the local populace.
Hearts and minds?
Point is, what's that?
Hearts and minds? Were you making friends and killing bad guys?
That's kind of trying to, yeah. It's a lot of, there's a lot more drinking chai with the village elders and doing the weekly shuras than there is sort of the sexy stuff of closing with. In coin, you're very reactive. So, you don't really, you're not going out looking for people so much, especially in the phase of the war that we were in. It's more kind of waiting for it to come to you and doing, it looks a lot more like a security mission than it does, an offensive war. We're trying to secure that area. The clear hold build mission is what kind of Afghanistan for a Marine looked like in 2011.
So we had on the show, we're going to air this show in a couple of weeks, I think. We had an Afghani, Fahim Fazli, an Afghan citizen who made his way to the United States and became involved with making Charlie Wilson's War. And Charlie Wilson himself suggested that he go back to Afghanistan as a translator because he was so great at it, helping make the movie Charlie Wilson's War. He did. He went back with the Marine Corps and was in with a unit like yours and talking to the village elders, etc. What was your impression of the Afghan people that you had chai with and sat with? A lot of respect, or were you warmly welcomed?
That's a good question. I think they were very, very used to Americans at that point. I think they had Americans kind of in their face for about 5 years. Was the time when units preceding ours had actually taken the area that we were in. So I think we were very practical, pragmatic people, I'd kind of say. And so I think they were just interested in, we were just kind of another cog in the wheel, something to deal with and something to get around, a source of friction in their life as much as they were a source of friction for us. You know, they had their plan there. They wanted to dig a canal, I remember one time, and that was an issue for us because they needed to tear up the one little bridge that we could actually get vehicles across. And so, you know, there's just a lot of back and forth about that. And it, you know, just not anything necessarily right or wrong, but just conflicting interests.
Sure.
I think that's kind of how
Peaceful
they saw us at
purposes,
this point.
peaceful uses interdicting with military necessity, maybe.
Sure.
And Joanna, how about you? Did you meet your adversaries at all?
No, I didn't go out into town in that capacity
Uh-huh.
and have discussions. Like I said, 2003 is when the war kicked off. Nobody was talking to anybody.
Yeah. You were just getting ready to go. right?
Conversation was a little bit limited.
We're just convoying up and down, trying to get out.
Unless you wanted to speak up to Mr.
Yeah.
249.
Wow. So here we have Iraq kicking off in 2003, and then Peter winding down in Afghanistan in 2011. What was a big memory of yours, Peter, of that time? What was the big event that happened during your tour? Was it a 13-month tour?
7 months.
7
The
months.
Army tends to do those longer ones. The Marine Corps, we tend to keep it shorter. Most Marine Corps deployments are 7 months for the Victor units, for your infantry units.
Victory units. So, geez, in Vietnam, the Marines were like 13 months, in the Army
Army was 12.
were 12, and we were looked down upon by the Marines. I supported the 3rd Marine Division, by the way, up on the DMZ, and it was a sad day when they went home, I'll tell you that.
And when I was in Afghanistan in 08, the 101st was doing 15-month tours.
Well, yeah.
So they were all over the place.
So we'll talk when we come back, but about you're at the University of St. Louis right now, aren't you, Peter?
Yes, sir.
And getting a bachelor's degree?
Yes, sir.
And what's your course of study?
Political science and business economics.
Oh, great for you. And that's a great school. I think you're in the Atlantic 10 conference. We had Coach Frank Layton on it here, and we're old rivals from Bonaventure and Niagara, but I think Bonaventure and St. Louis are in the same conference.
I lived in St. Louis for several years, and I still don't know what a billiken is.
I don't know what a Billiken is either, but boy, they're good. That's a great school. And Joanna, you were not in college at the time,
No.
and you were just all-star athletic. I have to go. Get me out of here. I'm going to the Marine Corps. Joanna.
Yes.
And you couldn't wait to go.
I couldn't wait to go.
So you come out of, and they must have seen something in you because you became a recruiter.
I did.
I mean, they
After my first enlistment.
and then your first enlistment was what, like a year or 2 years? Or,
No, 4 years.
You went 4 years?
Yeah.
So what did you do when you got home in the communications? Were you at 29 Palms or?
That's where you go to school.
Okay.
So I joined the Marine Corps, and then you go to boot camp, and then you go to comm school.
Wow.
So we're finishing up this first segment, and if you noticed on the title of the show, it goes Warrior, Scholar, Leader. And so next in our next segment, I think we want to explore furthering education, institutions of higher learning. Joanna, I mean, you're hip deep in that in that process, and of course, Peter, you're going through it. So next is when we come back, we'll explore that second segment.
Okay, and I have University of Virginia to talk about. My brother's running a program there as well. So we'll be right back. Stay tuned. You're listening to Veterans Heritage Hour.
Everyone's going to need an attorney at some point in your life. I'm no different. Hey everyone, it's James from Vets On. Whether it was my last will and testament before deployment or my ongoing custody battle for my children during my divorce, I needed help, so I lawyered up. If you need help, I urge you to contact Capstrom Law Firm. Capstrom Law Firm in Springfield, Missouri services clients throughout the state in criminal law, personal injury, and family law. With over 13 years practicing law, Tom Capstrom understands both law and court procedures and how stressful they can be. Let Tom Capstrom Law Firm and his dedicated staff take the stress and worry out of a difficult situation by calling him today. We feel so strong about the work that Tom and his staff are doing that he'll be a monthly guest on the show. Tom is a veteran and a listener, for God's sake, so you know the guy is solid and will fight for you. Give Tom a call today by calling 417-864-0552 or email Tom at capstromlaw.com. And don't forget to tell him that Vets On sent you.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertising.
If you or someone you know is looking for a new job or career, you need to visit the pros. National Career Fairs at ncfairs.com. National Career Fairs hosts over 300 career fairs a year nationwide. The events are free and give you the perfect chance to meet some of the top employers in your area face-to-face. To find the nearest career fair to you, visit ncfairs.com. Again, that's ncfairs.com. What are you waiting for?
Veterans served us, now it's time we serve them. As a veteran of Afghanistan and Iraq, as well as a current military member deployed abroad, I would like to take a minute of your time to tell you about Patriot Hills of New York. Patriot Hills of New York is a nonprofit organization providing support to veterans and their families. They partner veterans in need with over 65 health and wellness organizations, community groups, as well as philanthropic foundations providing no or low-cost services. They've helped over 400 veterans through confidential referral services, assistance with veterans issues, employment placement, as well as educational opportunities. If you need assistance or just want to help veterans by donating your time or services, contact them at info@patriothills.org. Again, that's info@patriothills.org. Visit patriothillsofnewyork.com for more information about their services or how you can donate. Our veterans deserve no less. We can give it to them, and you can help.
You're listening to the Veterans Heritage Hour on the Vets On Media Network.
Welcome back. We're talking with former Marines Joanna Sweat and Peter Lucer. Joanna's with the Pat Tillman Center at the University of Arizona, or Arizona State University. Whoa!
Those are fighting words.
Go Devils.
Oh, wow. And Peter's a student at the University of St. Louis, the Billikens. Again, we want to acknowledge this show as a memorial to the son of the host of our location here, Nathaniel Martins, who was killed in action September 6, 2005 as a Navy corpsman to the Marine Corps. And we love our corpsmen, as Joanna said. Everybody loves a corpsman. Joanna, before we switch to the academic side of this, let's talk, you were a recruiter. We're talking about the demographics of who goes. And I don't think it's that much different from who got drafted, actually, and who wound up on the front lines, as opposed to, going in other services or being doing something other than serving on the front. But it turns out that of the population in the United States, and this is an interesting statistic, of the population who's eligible to go to, to be drafted, so to speak, or to serve in the military, of an age that could be serving in the military, there's only 10% of that total population that is actually physically and mentally fit to serve. Is that, as a recruiter, were you aware of that?
I wasn't aware that how low that statistic is.
So of the 10%, so you're talking about, obesity, and if you've taken a drug for attention deficit disorder, Ritalin or something.
Asthma.
You cannot serve. So of all the people in the United States of America, all of our young people who are qualified to go, only 10% are actually fit to go. And of that 10%, then you have to get people who are actually predisposed to going, to volunteering to serve.
Yes.
And of that population, I think it's like 0.45% of the total population actually serves. 0.3. So then you have this small group of people, for whatever reason, you wanted to see the world, people need money. It's the middle class who serves, isn't it?
Yes.
Is that your opinion?
Your
experience?
That's my experience.
And people on the margins, yes, they're making enough, but they need a little bit more. Or how are they going to get a college education without some help? Or
exactly,
their horizons are limited.
Exactly.
And those are the people that, I don't know, Peter, I hope I'm not speaking for you, but I will ask you next. But so this statistic is then that this group of middle class, mostly Americans, born
and raised
in the U.S., are serving, and not only are they serving, but they're going back and back. Remember, we had multiple tours. We had, you couldn't get out of the stop loss. And we abused the heck out of these kids on arguably a foreign policy that went south. And the only people who held us in were these lower middle class kids, or kids from lower middle class circumstances. And we put a burden on them that this country will never be able to repay. Back and back and back to hold together a flaky policy decision to even go in the first place.
So what were your biggest challenges, Joanna, in recruiting?
Finding that qualified person.
Okay.
Honestly, I was telling Joe earlier, recruiting during that time, when I hit the field. So I came back from Iraq in late 2003, went to recruiter school, and then was assigned to Denver. So I recruited out of Denver from 2003 to 2006. And during that time, we were in the thick of it in Iraq and really gaining a lot of strides in Afghanistan at the time. And people were showing up. That was never a problem. It was just a matter of them determining what branch of service they wanted to join, and then figuring out if they were qualified.
That seems to be the kind of the bugaboo here.
Yeah,
is vetting those people.
There's a lot of people you turn away. Honestly, I mean, the people, especially on the Marine Corps side, we didn't have a lot of time. We're mission critical. We have to put in 3 to 4 kids each recruiter every month, and you get a kid that comes in that's like 250 pounds and he's like, I want to be a Marine. And you're like, well, you got to go lose a lot of that weight first and then come back. And then, so we spent a lot of time really seeking out those kids that were athletes. We're looking for the football players. We're looking for that really elite kid in the schools, the wrestler, the track star,
the basketball star.
Very much so.
Peter, is that you? Are you a jock? Peter Lucer? Peter, are you out there?
I think we lost him.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm here.
There you go. Sorry. Okay.
I wrestled in high school. I was a high school athlete. I don't know that I was a jock, but
well, you were a wrestler, man.
Active. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I was a wrestler as well.
No kidding.
Yep. Not a very good one, but I was a wrestler. I gave it a try.
I should point out the Lucer family, David's dad and Peter's uncle was a lieutenant.
Grandfather. Peter's grandfather.
Peter's grandfather. That's right.
Yeah.
Peter's grandfather was a lieutenant commander in the Navy, Notre Dame graduate.
And his great-great-grandfather was a captain in the infantry in World War I.
Wow. So there's a tradition there of service. I think that plays a role, doesn't it, Peter? Wouldn't you think a tradition of military experience in the family leads one to consider it anyway?
I mean, absolutely. Yeah, I think for a lot of people, it's not maybe guys that I went to high school with, I don't think it was maybe seen as an option. But when you have that history, and people who have done it and people who have set that example for you, and you interact with them growing up, it becomes something that's a possibility, whereas other people wouldn't even consider it on their, stops to college or whatever they were doing.
So now you're both out, and now you're in college. Now you're fulfilling the dream. You're getting your payback for your service, and you, Joanna, got a degree from ASU, and you're helping others. And Peter, you're now really engaged in a wonderful degree from the University of St. Louis, and you're blogging Tom Ricks, who David and I met here. So how's that working out? Are you fulfilling yourself, do you think, Peter? Are you getting what you bargained for? Is this a payback for you that you're happy with?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thrilled. I think I always wanted a 4-year degree, a bachelor's degree. And, the government said, hey, we're willing to foot the bill for that in exchange for your service. That's, the best kind of benefit that I can get. For me, it's a great benefit.
Were you recruited there, or how did you find your way to the University of St. Louis?
St. Louis is my hometown. I actually have 3 older siblings who are graduates from SLU, and just a whole bunch of people on both sides of the family that have gone there. When I applied to a couple St. Louis schools, and they actually were the most responsive on the veteran side of things. They had a point of contact there. He's a retired lieutenant colonel from the Army, Lieutenant Colonel Bamber, and they put me in touch with him. And he just became an advocate and kind of a bulldog for me, and started blowing up people's phones and moving heaven and earth to get me into school there. And that was less of my experience with some of the other schools, so that was the easiest place to go. So that's kind of where I went, and it seemed like they really wanted me.
Wow. And so, Joanna, you're that person. You're that person for students at Arizona State. Joanna is highly regarded here at Arizona State, as is the Pat Tillman Center and her boss, Steve Borden.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's pretty terrific. David and I have nosed around there, and it couldn't be named after a more apt and more heroic person than Pat Tillman. So tell us what you're doing to recruit students there, Joanna.
Well, I don't necessarily recruit students.
Well, the veterans that you get there,
yes.
How do you help them?
So I'm their first point of entry. So any issues that they have, any concerns, just basically kind of even giving them a little assessment, because we come from, we're cut from the same cloth. They feel comfortable talking to me about anything that they're dealing with in their decision to go to college. And so I'm able to really sit down with them and determine what their goals are, if we're the right fit. If they're not ready for 4-year academia, then if they need to start at the community college, then I work that plan with them as well. So I'm just kind of a full service person. And then for my students that are at ASU, I take it a step further. I make sure that they're retained, that they're successful while they're at the university, and then I help find them viable employment. And I don't mean just getting them a job when they graduate. I mean really fruitful careers.
And you work hard at that, I'm sure.
I do, yes.
Your reputation is wonderful.
We just launched a great program called Boots to Suits. And what that does is it pairs a veteran student in their junior, senior, or graduate level year and allows them to work with a vice president or higher of any corporation and company that they desire to kind of work in that industry. And that person is usually a civilian, is what the preference is, so that they can meet a veteran student and see how great and valuable they are. And then because they have that upper level of authority in their business, they can make big inroads for our veterans in their companies.
Well, Arizona State certainly can be proud of what they're doing for veterans and for the entire community.
Absolutely. How many veterans are going to ASU now, Arizona State?
We have over 4,000 attending
You're kidding
ASU.
me. 4,000.
4,000 military veterans, family members, and dependents.
And if I recall correctly, in late 2010, early 2011, there were less than 1,000.
Yes.
And so in 4 years, you've quadrupled, in excess of quadrupled the numbers.
That's the difference, that having a full service veteran center, because that's about, in 2011 is when Pat Tillman Veteran Center was built. I came on as permanent staff in 2012 along with the director. And that just makes all the difference, that you actually have permanent staff and that they're veterans and that their sole focus is to work with the veteran students, not a half part of their responsibilities. It needs to be 100% of their responsibility.
Peter, is that your experience, or did you get, you had that Army. It's nice to hear that you like an Army guy. That's unusual for a Marine.
And a lieutenant colonel.
Well, I'd throw beans on lieutenant colonels, as we all know. But you like that lieutenant colonel, and are they helping a lot of veterans there at the University of St. Louis?
We're doing a good job. We don't yet have a full service veteran center. It's been talked about. We have veterans are a much smaller portion of our community. We only have about 350, and don't call me on the numbers, but I'm pretty sure I'm pretty close here. People who are on some kind of military related benefits, and of those, only about 100 or 150 are actual veterans. We have a lot more dependents. So it's a much smaller portion of our population. So we don't have a full service veteran center going yet, but it's an enthusiastic community. We're embraced. The president of the university has made a point of reaching out to the veterans organization a number of times to just ask us what we need. And the vice president, who's in charge of retention, works really, really closely with us. So we're coming along, and I think it brought Lieutenant Colonel Bamber on around 2011, and they're making really great strides in being very veteran friendly and reaching out to us and helping us succeed at the university.
as we're talking about nepotism here, you with your uncle here next to me. My brother Tom was in Vietnam ahead of me and got wounded, medevaced home in '67, and stayed in. And anyway, he became a lawyer, a successful lawyer in Syracuse, New York, worked for the Justice Department, and retired recently, married, and two great kids, two nephews. Anyway, he's down at the University of Virginia, and part-time he is headed up the Accelerated Master's Program for Veterans in Systems Engineering. So University of Virginia, arguably one of the better public universities in the United States, is taken an active role in recruiting veterans, and my brother is taking an active role in helping out in his retirement and enjoying every day of it. So I think how many students at the University of St. Louis, Peter?
I think we're around 10,000. I couldn't give you a better number than that, but plus or minus 1,000, I think we're somewhere in that range.
Well, here's University of Arizona State University. Whoa, I'm going to get killed here.
Yeah.
Arizona State University has 60 or 70,000 students.
Yeah, we're over 70,000.
Well,
The largest public university in the country.
and I have to say, Michael Crow, the president, it's incredible. He's transforming Arizona.
He's phenomenal.
He is phenomenal. And there's a Center for the Study of War, which David and I have met many of those people, and they're guests and have been guests on this show, including Thomas Ricks, who we have on tape. And Peter, we'll get back to you on that. But they also have a Center for the Study of Religion and Conflict, and they also have now the McCain Center, the McCain Institute.
For international leadership.
For international leadership. I wonder if there's another strategy other than bombing. I wonder what the McCain Institute has to offer, other than they want to bomb and or somehow have a no-fly zone.
They have a very interesting strategy laid out for that institute, and I would fully endorse it and support it any day of the week.
And I was too flippant, and I shouldn't have said that, but we hope to have a representative of Senator McCain's office on the show to explore that too. But it's interesting. You have the McCain Institute, and then you have the New America Foundation by Michael, set up by Michael Crow. And gosh, what a wealth of education here in this community.
And they're reaching into the veterans community.
And they're really good. And David, you, I should point out, were instrumental in getting legislation passed. So in-state tuition. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. In 2010, we approached the legislature about in-state tuition, and mostly to my amazement, when I approached most of the legislators who were not veterans, they didn't understand what the GI Bill was. And so when I said I'd like to talk to you about in-state tuition, they said, "Oh, we can't afford free tuition." And so I said, "No, that's not the way it works. The money comes to the universities and the communities through the GI Bill." "Oh," they said. "Well, that's a horse of a different color." So they passed it in that legislature, and it passed. The governor signed it in 2011, spring of 2011, with an emergency clause. So it was effective the day she signed it, and so we did that, and it was really used as a model on the national level. The recent federal legislation now, all public school, I should say, all schools receiving federal funds now have to offer in-state tuition to those veterans, no matter their home.
And I think Senator McCain was in favor of that bill and did work actively on that. He's been very good for veterans issues here.
Senator McCain, Kirsten Sinema,
Yeah.
And as a follow-on, interestingly enough, Ruben Gallego and Kirsten Sinema were instrumental in the state legislature. Of course, now they're both in the U.S. Congress.
And Ruben, hopefully you have on this show, he was another former Marine who went to Harvard on the GI Bill, married his sweetheart, who's now in active politics here, and
city council member at the city of Phoenix.
Yes, and she has been great, and we hope to have Ruben on the show when he's home in the district. Listen, and you're listening to the Veterans Heritage Hour. We'll be right back. We're talking about education, the Marine Corps, and how life can be better after the Corps than before.
Veterans served us. Now it's time we serve them. As a veteran of Afghanistan and Iraq, as well as a current military member deployed abroad, I would like to take a minute of your time to tell you about Patriot Hills of New York. Patriot Hills of New York is a nonprofit organization providing support to veterans and their families. They partner veterans in need with over 65 health and wellness organizations, community groups, as well as philanthropic foundations providing no or low-cost services. They've helped over 400 veterans through confidential referral services, assistance with veterans issues, employment placement, as well as educational opportunities. If you need assistance or just want to help veterans by donating your time or services, contact them at info@patriothills.org. Again, that's info@patriothills.org. Visit patriothillsnewyork.com for more information about their services or how you can donate. Our veterans deserve no less. We can give it to them, and you can help. Everyone's going to need an attorney at some point in their life. I'm no different. Hey, everyone, it's James from Vets On. Whether it was my last will and testament before deployment or my ongoing custody battle for my children during my divorce, I needed help, so I lawyered up. If you need help, I urge you to contact Capstrom Law Firm. Capstrom Law Firm in Springfield, Missouri services clients throughout the state in criminal law, personal injury, and family law. With over 13 years practicing law, Tom Capstrom understands both law and court procedures and how stressful they can be. Let Tom Capstrom Law Firm and his dedicated staff take the stress and worry out of a difficult situation by calling him today. We feel so strong about the work that Tom and his staff are doing that he'll be a monthly guest on the show. Tom is a veteran and a listener, for God's sake, so you know the guy is solid and will fight for you. Give Tom a call today by calling 417-864-0552. Or email Tom at capstromlaw.com. And don't forget to tell him that Vets On sent you.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertising.
If you or someone you know is looking for a new job or career, you need to visit the pros. National Career Fairs at ncfairs.com. National Career Fairs hosts over 300 career fairs a year nationwide. The events are free and give you the perfect chance to meet some of the top employers in your area face to face. To find the nearest career fair to you, visit ncfairs.com. Again, that's ncfairs.com. What are you waiting for?
You're listening to the Veterans Heritage Hour on the Vets On Media Network.
We're back on the Veterans Heritage Hour with Joanna Sweat and in St. Louis, Peter Lucer, and we're now going to focus on leadership. Where do these fine people, how are these fine people using their skills learned in the military and shaped by their subsequent educations, and how are they becoming leaders in their community?
Yeah, Peter, I just wanted to talk a little bit about your experience in working with Tom Ricks and the Foreign Policy publication. Tell us a little bit about leadership and perspective from the NCO perspective when it comes to public policy.
Sure. That was the subject of the first thing that I kind of wrote for Tom that got ran on his blog on foreignpolicy.com, The Best Defense. And it was kind of a response to another Marine, a sergeant, had written that as we're kind of assessing two lost wars, the enlisted persons really needed to have a voice in this conversation that we're having as we're moving forward in crafting policy for kind of the future of war. And so I wrote something and I tried to define what that relationship would be. I think it's too far to say that, enlisted, whether they're in or out, should have, a big seat at that table and actually crafting policy. But what we can do, what those of us who are on the ground and saw, is, we can be witnesses. We can inform that policy.
Absolutely.
One of the commenters kind of said something, maybe even a little better than I did in the article, that there's a lot of space between what we see on the ground and a PowerPoint slide that gets shown in DC. And so shrinking that gap and bringing enlisted persons closer to policymakers and decision makers is really, really important. I think there was a lack of truth telling and truth telling the power that occurred in these last 2 wars that we fought. And so moving forward, if we want to have good policy crafted by decision makers, it needs to be informed by those of us who saw it on the ground. Said we can't necessarily make those decisions because, we kind of have conflicting interests. When I'm on the ground in Afghanistan, and if you give me a choice, I might say, well, heck with it. I don't want to go outside the wire. That's what we signed up to do, and that's what we need. We need people to do that. So we don't necessarily get a vote in that way, but we can certainly be sort of radical witnesses and truth tellers to those who make those decisions, so that the things that they see and hear in those PowerPoint presentations more accurately reflect, the experiences and the things that I saw, and they're more truthful. So I think that's my role as a veteran and as a veteran infantryman, is to try and reach out to those people and just say, hey, I don't know what the right thing to do necessarily is. I certainly have some opinions, but what I can tell you is this is what was really happening from my perspective.
Can you give us an example, Peter, of truth telling that you would like to? Is there one specific incident you can mention?
Well, I think there was a lot of double talk about our successes. I think the military maybe wasted some of its goodwill. It's a highly trusted institution in America, the military. But I think we lost some of that trust when we saw a lot of times, colonels and general officers standing up and talking about successes and the readiness of the Afghan military. And I don't know if that's spin or if, they just didn't know. There's an excellent documentary by a guy at Vice News called Ben Anderson called This Is What Winning Looks Like. And he embedded with some Marines in Sangin. And he did a lot of cuts between, sort of press conferences that were being had, at Fort Dill in Tampa, the headquarters of CENTCOM, or in DC or in Kabul, with generals or ambassadors standing next to Afghan generals and talking about all these great things that we were doing, and then cutting back to the Marines in Sangin who were having a really hard time with their Afghan partners, who were some of them were excellent, and I don't mean to say that none of them were, but there were problems with corruption and vice and drug use and the narcotics trafficking and bribes and all these other things that were going on.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at Joe here, and I think we're having a deja vu moment here.
Well, you don't get promoted on value. So if you're a colonel or somebody going to May's rank, I got a body count so people could make rank, and in a losing cause. So
we had a military who was respected at the time.
Sure.
We had a war that was going on over a long period of time. The reports that were coming out of the field or from the generals in the theater were one thing, and suddenly we find ourselves that might not be quite the perspective that people are willing to accept.
Al, and you speak out about it. I mean, we had New York Times reporters writing the truth, and they were pilloried for being traitors and communists, etc. And they were telling the truth, and the powers that be didn't want to let truth out because it wasn't so pretty. Joanna, how about you and your leadership role? I mean, you were really highly regarded in the veterans community. How do you see your future of changing policy and attitudes and acceptance of veterans?
We know each other. I don't like to do this whole thing where it's enlisted versus officer corps, but I mean, there's just a huge difference than what the enlisted side of the military does, and how our morale and how our camaraderie is built. And nothing can compare to that. And so our voice out here in academia tends to be the honest voice. I mean, we get a lot of generals that come out here and get assigned to universities when they get out, and they get these nice cushy jobs, and they dictate what's the measure of student success. And we're boots on the ground still, because
Sure.
I was a student. Now I'm working as a staff member in academia. I'm not the director, and nor do I want to be, because I don't want to play on that political field. I want to play with my enlisted members and even some of the junior officers that are getting out and reestablishing themselves in education and their careers.
And most of the folks that you do come in contact with at Arizona State University are former enlisted and junior NCOs. Yes.
Yes. I mean, and that's who we're dealing with. And,
So-
and that's what I know.
So when David and I thought about putting this radio show together, that's what we wanted to have, a voice. You know, we have the Center on the Study of War. We have all these studies being conducted, but who's looking out for the veteran? And I have to say that not many people have looked out for the troops. Otherwise, we wouldn't have all of the necessity for all these organizations we have a VA that's busted. I mean, it's just a shame. I don't know how any American can look himself or herself in the
But
eye.
when it comes to leadership, I think that it's on us.
Well, it's always on us. It's us.
Always, yes.
It's us for us.
Yep.
Yes.
And that's why this show is here, Veterans for Veterans.
Yep.
The politicians have another agenda, but we've always had each other's backs. I think, Peter, you would agree with that, would you not?
Absolutely.
And when you're in the field fighting, you don't care about you join for the flag, but you fight for your brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And I think when you bring that message home, and it's still the battle too, who's going to look after us, but us? That's what I feel.
And that's who's taking care of us on the outside.
Right.
We're doing more for each other than the system is doing for us. And that's a big, huge problem.
Yes.
Well, that's a big difference. I mean, that's a hugely different model than what we might well have experienced otherwise.
Yes.
I don't know. I think all of you might feel the same, but I haven't been in the Army. I got out in 1970. But when somebody in uniform gets hurt or killed,
Man, you're older than I thought.
I know. I'm good looking still, though. Joanna's crying over here.
You got a full head of hair.
I've got a full head of hair. It's not
Okay,
Alex.
I'm envious.
But anyway, we have. I feel like it's my. They're still my guy. It's like a unit over the hill that's getting hit. It's like God, that hurts when we lose, or when we lose people foolishly, or when politicians make a dumb mistake and lie about it, and when our troops are at risk, and when lives are at risk. We blew away 3 million civilians in Vietnam, and no one seems to care about that. I don't know how many Iraqis and Afghanis we've killed over failed policies or phony policies or policies that weren't well thought out or generated by some think tank for some self-serving reason. But it's up to us, former military, to enlighten one another as to what's really going on and to caution these people before you take the lives of our precious 10% of the population. My God, think about it first. Let's have a discussion, and we have a role. I think we have a role to be part of that discussion.
And Peter, where are you in the process? What year are you in at St. Louis University?
I'm a freshman.
You're
I'm a freshman.
So you got a little ways to go. You got a couple of years in front of you. And then you'll continue to write for foreign policy, I assume?
Yeah, as long as they let me, as long as they keep liking my stuff.
As long as you got something
try.
worthwhile to say, is that what you're saying?
What's that?
As long as you have something worthwhile to say?
Yeah. Hopefully.
Peter, we met Tom Ricks, but we also met the gentleman who runs the blog, who was an Air Force Academy grad who became an officer with the Army and served a couple of tours in Iraq, I believe. And we had nice words to say with him, and we have him on tape too that we will bring up at some point in time. So when you're blogging and you're corresponding, you might mention that they met David and I when they were here at ASU. They made a presentation at the Cronkite School of Journalism, another fine institution for the Arizona State University.
Yeah, I sure will.
Any parting comments? We got a minute left or so. Any parting comments, Peter?
Oh, just real quick. I just want to say, I don't want this to be entirely negative. Like I said, I think we did lay out all the problems that we have. I think the key, though, like I said, isn't necessarily too much criticism. I think I talked to an anthropologist. I think we need to study veterans more as a culture, and I think that's a dangerous thing to do in academia right now. Not a lot of people are out there looking at us as a culture, so I think we need more raw data and just honest conversations. I don't want to sit and rag on all these generals and colonels and everything. It's more about just talking to people and sitting down and having that conversation. And I think if we can do that, I think life will be a lot better for us as veterans and for our foreign policy moving forward.
Joanna, thank you. Any parting comments? We got a couple seconds left.
No, I would agree with Peter on that sentiment. And ASU is actually looking at trying to do a transition assessment where they bring service members in and kind of have a backwards indoctrination out of the service back into civilian world to kind of study those endeavors.
That's fantastic.
Well, listen, I'm sure someone has all this data, by the way. We've got multi-millions of dollars in here. So listen, next week we're going to be with a real stick and rudder guy, Major General
Carl Schneider.
Carl Schneider, the Duke,
The
call
Duke.
sign Duke. He'll be here next week, and Major General retired, 87 years of age, but he can still stick it. Beautiful guy. So stay tuned, and we'll look forward to hearing his thoughts on the future war and his past experiences.
And Peter, you say hello to your mom and dad for me, will you?
Yes, sir.
Through the past.